Hi, welcome to our presentation on enhancing professional skills through escape room-based learning. I am Harjit Kemp from Brunel, University of London, and my role is a learning technologist. I am joined today with my colleagues who are going to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Lin. I'm a learning technologist at Brunel University as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yasmin Musse, and I'm also a learning technologist.
Thanks, Peter and Yasmin. So today we're sharing our journey with you in using immersive escape rooms to bridge the gap between classroom theory and real-world professional skills. We will be discussing our presentation as a podcast style to hopefully better engage you to sit through to the very end. I'm just going to hand you over to Yasmin now.
So we do have an interesting murder case that will be discussed, so make sure you keep listening.
Peter, could you now tell us
Yes.
more about what we are going to cover in this presentation?
Yeah, sure. In this presentation, we're going to cover 4 key areas. We're going to talk about the very unique facility we've got and the initiative called the Crystal Mission. And then we're going to talk about the learning design and rationale, how we designed it, what the theoretical framework that we use to help us to design this to make sure that the activity linked to a student's learning and their experience. And we are going to talk about a murder case as well. At the end of this presentation, yeah, it's a real murder case that we create in our room, and at the end of this presentation, we'll be talking about how we further develop these these cases that we build for wider impact and make sure these learning experiences are sustainable.
Oh, that sounds great, Peter. So shall we start with what the amazing facility we have at Brunel so far?
Yeah, sure. So the learning experience is about a gamified experience that use our immersive learning room. So as you can see on the screen, this is our very unique immersive learning room. It has 3 massive touch screens, an audio system, and a wind machine, and we even have a smell machine to create that immersive experience for our students. And then we initially, this facility is used for clinical simulation. So you could see earlier on the screen, it looks like a hospital cubicle, but we designed this initiative called Crystal Mission, which is inspired by a very popular TV show back in 90s, where there are 4 different theme zones. In each theme zone, there are some 4 little small games where students will participate in small group of 4 students. Only one person in each game, only one person physically engage in that activity, while others shout at them to support them to finish a task within the time limit.
Yes, and we're trying to make sure that they don't shout, right, Peter?
Yeah, and we fail on that because they will, and they do loudly. We also create a crystal dome as a grand finale, as a fun activity at the end of the activity.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Peter.
So actually, this experience all about soft skills that we build. Yasmin, would you like to talk about?
Yeah, sure.
This.
So what we've noticed when the students use the Crystal Mission is that they develop communication skills. As Peter mentioned, they do end up shouting at each other. But once they go through each scenario, they then realize that they have to work as a team to be able to finish the game on time. So it does help give them those skills as making decisions and being aware of the situation, and also having some leadership skills as well.
Yeah, thanks, Yasmin. Even though it looks like a game, well, and it feels like just a game, but we make sure that learning happens during these activities. So we ensure that these activities foster active participation and critical thinking while they are participating in these activities. We also go through a very robust debrief led by academics to ensure that they reflect on their observation, they reflect on their behavior, and how these kind of how these behavior observation linked with their clinical practice. And also the fact that this is a light-hearted environment and a safe environment for them to practice their critical skills.
Okay, so maybe we can move on to how the learning design and the rationale behind this.
Yeah, so the learning design, the underpinning theory is called Kolb experiential learning theory. So Kolb experiential learning theory has 4 different stages. So the actual activity that the Crystal Mission game is to provide a concrete experience for our student. They actively participate in this in the game while they're doing these activity. They actively engage in the experience. After each activity or after each game, we go through a debrief session where students reflect on their behavior and observation. They probably say, "Oh, we shouldn't be shouting at each other because the person in the center of the room couldn't get the information from other teammates when everyone's shouting at the same time." So with that reflection, then we move on to this 3rd stage where the academics will prompt and support them to find strategies or any skills that they need to manage that kind of situation. So hopefully during the 3rd stage, students build the concept of how they could manage these kind of situation and link to their clinical practice. And then when student on the 4th stage, when students go on to placement, they can apply these strategies that they learn from these light-hearted experience, and that form a learning cycle where students build from their experience, build from their reflection, build from the strategy that they develop during their reflection, and then apply these learning in their practice.
Oh, so how did you design this theory for the course here?
So these activities are originally built with our healthcare professionals or healthcare courses in Department of Health Sciences, including nursing, social work, occupational therapy, and our medical schools as well. So we make sure that each activity has their underpinning learning key points that align with professional standards, including NMC, that's for nursing, HCPC, that's for a lot of healthcare professionals, and of course for medical school, they have this professional standard called GMC, outcomes for graduates.
Excellent. That sounds really interesting. Thanks, Peter, for that. So building on from this initiative, we created an escape room murder scenario that we promised you at the beginning of this presentation. So I'm going to now give you over to Yas.
Hello, everyone. So, following the success of the Crystal Mission, for this academic year, we had a new course here at Brunel called Crime Science, Investigation and Intelligence for our master's students. And it was developed in September, or started in September 2025. This course really wanted to use the ILR with parts of their content. So for the first semester, we had fake murder scenarios that we created in the ILR for students to investigate. Following obviously using this, in semester 2, we created an escape room scenario, which was examined the first actual murder investigated by the Metropolitan Police.
And it was in 1849, isn't it?
Yes, it was. So it was quite fascinating to hear or actually be part of this project, because obviously 1849, that was a very, very long time ago, and policing was very different compared to now. So
so that means there was no DNA back then either, was there, in
there
1849?
wasn't. No.
Wow.
So how do we start from the conception to the design? So we discussed with the academics first what their learning outcomes for this module was. For this particular scenario, the academics really wanted to focus on professional curiosity. And that's why they selected the Bermondsey murder. So I'm not sure if anyone's aware of the murder, but it basically was in 1849, and there were two friends of the victim who went to the police station to report him missing because they hadn't seen him for a couple of days. And once the investigators heard from the witnesses, they decided to go visit his residence, and that's where they found that the house had been emptied and ransacked and everything had been sold off, and eventually they did find a body in the kitchen. So we use this case study for the students to be able to create their own hypothesis and try and find out what had happened. So we didn't give them a lot of information because obviously we didn't want any biases. So we gave them, as you can see the picture at the bottom, that was the small information that they had. And we also collaborated with the theatre department. We had 2 actors that came in, and the scenario was actually split into 2 scenarios. So we had a live action scene in the first scenario where we had a props that were used. So we had an old Victorian table and we had the actors, and the students were then given the role of senior investigators, and they worked as a team to decide what questions they were going to ask the witnesses, and therefore decide how the investigation would go moving forward.
Yeah, that sounds like a great interprofessional learning experience. It sounds like with policing and performing arts students can collaborate and work on one scenario, isn't it?
Yes, it was really good to see, and I think the actors were quite surprised because they were just told, here's a script, and they thought it was a fake murder scene, but then we told them that it was actually an actual murder, and they were actually intrigued and stayed to the very end of the session just to see how it went.
Okay, yes. And then how did this help with the assessment and the evaluation?
So for each part, I'll just go through the pictures over here. So just to give you a warning, there is not going to be anything unsuitable for this presentation. We decided not to show you the actual body. So as you can see on the top left corner, that's the police station. And the next photo is obviously the residence of the victim. And then the bottom pictures are the kitchen. And as you can tell, like there's a bloody dress over there. And that's one of the evidence, one of the artifacts that they found as evidence. So following on from your question, Harjit,
Yep.
after each scenario, the academics would pause and they would debrief with the students. So as I mentioned, there was 2 scenarios. What we had in the first, after the investigation or the interview process, the academics would then go through with the students what questions they had not asked and what they could have asked to maybe go to get more evidence for them. They also worked as a group, so even the students themselves, they had like peer-to-peer evaluation. So some of the students said what went well and what didn't go well and what further route of inquiry they could have used. And as it was quite fascinating, we did compare the historical versus the modern forensic discussion. So obviously right now we have great technology. We're able to get DNA, we have photos, we have CCTV, we have different ways that we can try and identify somebody in the murder investigation, whereas compared to 1849 they didn't have that. So we also found that students really found it quite engaging compared to just being sitting inside a lecture listening to the actual murder, while they could experience it for themselves.
Yeah, I think at this point, our audience probably thinking, oh my word, this is a massive project. Well, you're right. It is a massive project.
It is.
3 of
Yeah.
us, about 4 months to create.
Yeah. Took us 4
Yes.
months to put it together, and we can use this again for next academic year or
Yeah,
years to
definitely
come.
worth it.
Yeah, but there may be some areas that we could actually improve on as well, because this was one of the first times we had used it for a different college other than our College of Health and Sciences. So yeah,
Yeah,
it
that's
was
correct.
it was a really good a very interesting project for myself and Yaz and Peter for us to do. We really enjoyed it.
Yes. So I think it shows like a great collaboration between like the departments plus the teams as well. For like I mentioned, the academic brought over a Victorian table just to make sure that it was authentic. We had tables that we borrowed, chairs that we borrowed from the theatre department. We made sure that students were aware that we were going to be discussing a murder and that there would be like a body that would be uncovered, so they knew that was taking place. And if they were uncomfortable or were not did not want to be there, they were allowed to leave the room. And we gave them some trigger warnings, and there is support available for them. I think the most interesting thing is just to make sure that things were accurate historically. So, for example, in the police station, they would have the picture or the portrait of the reigning monarch at that time. So we had to Google who was the reigning monarch at that time and what age would they be at that time to make sure that it was historically accurate as well.
Great. It was really good. Really a great project this was.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think with these two case studies, we definitely have the potential to expand this, expand our provision, and to have wider impact and make sure that these kind of learning activities are sustainable, isn't it?
Yes, that is
definitely
correct.
Yeah. So in the future, we are looking at to develop more engaging interprofessional learning opportunities across different departments. So, for example, law, social work, and education, we might be able to create a scenario that different professionals can work together. They probably they provide their views from their professional area, working on one scenario. And this is definitely an area that we are going to develop for in our immersive learning room, in our IOR, to enhance, to enable interprofessional learning opportunities. And also, we are very keen to collaborate with other institutions.
Yes.
So yeah, if anyone is interested in working together on this project, please feel free to contact us.
Yes, and if you have any recommendations, we'd also love to hear about what other universities are doing, should they have this technology within their university.
Brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. So I hope does this wrap up our podcast today, Yas and Peter?
I think it does.
Yes.
Excellent.
So yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you. Yas and Peter.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.